Big royal news breaking today. As I reported earlier on my Substack, King Charles is horrified about the prospect of Harry and Meghan running out of money because Netflix is about to scrap their mega deal. Now, this isn't good news for the Sussexes, who even befriended the wife of the Netflix co-chief executive Ted Sarandos to try and save them from the axe. But it hasn't worked. After years of flops and non-deliveries, the Netflix hammer blow is coming. I first reported on this last year, but critically, Puck, which is a highly connected entertainment newsletter edited by the former editorial director of The Hollywood Reporter, Matthew Belloni, Puck has confirmed this week those long suspected rumours that the streamer is not expected to renew its 5-year, $100 million deal, which they signed in 2020. Now, that news won't surprise anyone within Hollywood, given the disastrous product that has come out of Harry and Meghan, but I can reveal today it is the worst nightmare for King Charles, because the king and his courtiers have privately confided that they are dreading the possibility of the cash-hungry Sussexes running out of money, and that now becomes a much more likely eventuality. This is what my royal source has revealed to me today. This is the king's worst nightmare. He's horrified. There are genuine fears within his court that Prince Harry and his wife are going to run out of money and come cap in hand to their father. Harry doesn't let up ever, especially about the security situation and Harry's court case against the Home Office. That's one of the reasons the king no longer takes many of his calls. It's unrelenting. Charles is already attempting to deal with the Prince Andrew situation, which is again about money. There is only so much money to go round, and he must be responsible as he bids to run an efficient monarchy for a modern era. The source close to the king continues. Since being with Meghan, Harry has become obsessed with money. It seems to drive so much of his jealousy and envy. But at least for the past couple of years, he's had it. It always seemed predictable, though, that the money wouldn't last. Now, here's the situation. Harry does get a further inheritance of around £7 million next month. That's from the estate of the late Queen Mother, because she made it very certain that he wasn't going to be allowed access to that money until he was an adult, until he was 40 years old. However, even though Harry and Meghan are regularly using corporate freebies or relying on the generosity of wealthier friends to fund their expenses, they still do require significant incoming funds to continue to pay for their exorbitant accommodation, travel costs, and especially security needs, because those security costs have become particularly high because of Harry's growing paranoia. It is possible, I am told, that there'll be some sort of face-saving lower value deal offered to Harry and Meghan by Sarandos as a result of their friendship. That's what happened with the Obamas and Netflix when their exclusive deal ran out. But the thing is, the Obamas have been way more successful than the Sussexes in terms of what they've produced. And some sort of first look deal would actually go nowhere near far enough to cover what the Sussexes have become accustomed to financially. And this is a real disaster for Netflix too, because it's embarrassing for Ted Sarandos. Do you remember when he first signed the couple, he described them as global change makers? He said they would tell stories that can help build resistance. Lately, he's had to do a complete 180 on that, describing the couple as, quote, controversial and great at getting attention, while adding, you may love them or hate them, but you're watching. But actually, far fewer people have been watching in recent years. It may have been true that there was a sort of morbid fascination to tune in for their royal trashing docuseries, but not for their other non-royal projects, like the documentary series Live to Lead and Heart of Invictus. Both of them were flops. And you'll remember Meghan's passion project, the children's animation series Pearl, it was axed before it even went into production. Now look, I've predicted this for a long time, because the tragedy for Harry and Meghan, even though they didn't realise it, is that the further they are estranged from the royal family and the further that they are away from British royal life, the lower their value in the US, where they are now treated as, I guess, B-list celebrities, really, rather than bona fide superstars like Prince William and Catherine, the Princess of Wales. Whether Harry and Meghan like it or not, their only genuine commercial success stories have been completely reliant on their connection to the royal family. Obviously, there was Harry's awful autobiography, Spare, and that 6-part moan fest on Netflix. And the thing is, every time the Duke and Duchess of Sussex made that decision to turn on their own flesh and blood in order to feather the Montecito nest, it's caused their popularity to plummet on both sides of the Atlantic, which makes them an increasingly toxic prospect for potential future commercial partners and celebrities like Taylor Swift, who have continued to align themselves with William and Catherine rather than the Sussexes. Andrew Eborn, what do you make of this?
Well, I think it's extraordinary. I know it's usual fodder with William. Both William and Harry provide fodder on different stories for different sides. I feel a bit sorry for them, really, because they're accustomed to a certain living. They need certain security, and it's really expensive. And Netflix, being a commercial organization, I know Ted has seen down in Cannes all the time at these various festivals. The reality is, to be commercial, you need to make decisions that make financial sense. It made no financial sense to carry on with $100 million, this 5-year deal. So you need to look at what else you can do. But as a father, I get it that Charles is not only worried about, okay, what am I going to do with the money, but he must be worried about his son, I would have thought. And so you need to look at that side. The other thing as well, Dan, it's worth unpacking, is what happened to Princess Diana's estate. Because according to the High Court of Justice, that was worth about $30 million. And in addition to the money which you mentioned from the late Queen Mother, late Queen Elizabeth's mother, obviously that all adds up. You need to look at both sides of it. How much has he actually got in reality? How much is his lifestyle costing? And what needs to be done accordingly?
I mean, Charlie, look, he does have money. I'm not trying to say that Harry is on the breadline, but I think what's interesting is the fear that Charles has, because he's clearly looking at this extravagant lifestyle that his youngest son is leading, demanding to fly private jets instead of commercial, even when he's going short distances across America. I mean, that really adds up very quickly.
I suppose when you're born into money, which every royal is around the world, you get accustomed to living a certain way. So would you expect to see Prince Harry flying Ryanair? You wouldn't. It wouldn't look right. So when you're born into that luxury lifestyle of security, Range Rovers, police escorts, private access to airports, private dinners with presidents and other royals around the world, I guess that's a hard thing to detach from, irrespective of your incessant desire to detach from the institution itself. And I don't really believe that Harry does want to detach from the institution. I think it's an easy way to make money. As you said a moment ago, he earned 100 million from Netflix, you said. I'm sure he's still got a lot of that left over, provided they've actually paid him for that one television series they made. And I have to be honest, I watched that when it came out. I watched it the whole way through. By episode 3, I was bored because it turned into racism and woke and feminism. And I thought,
Brexit's terrible, isn't it?
Yeah,
England's racist, all of the usual woke tropes.
But, you know, I kind of hoped that the fairy tale would have lasted. You know, I still believe that Harry and Meghan will end up getting divorced, which would be a massive problem for him with his kids, I believe. I assume that she's probably not a very nice woman, because you can't be that happy all the time and be sincere. I just don't see it. Unless, of course, you're Andrew Eborn. He's always smiling.
I am always smiling.
But, you know, there's 18 staff members have left. So we know, don't we, that Meghan doesn't treat people very well.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. I think that you know, the documentary they released, Harry and Meghan, on Netflix, where they said that the UK was racist. I always say to people when I discuss those two that at the time they were celebrated so much. Everyone wanted that to work. Everyone celebrated her. They amplified the fact that she was a mixed race woman being brought into the royal family. Now, for those who don't know, and I know that you and Andrew will, Dan, is that you have to get the blessing of the monarch to get married. So obviously the Queen saw virtue in Meghan when she was alive. So what went wrong?
It's funny though,
They
isn't
couldn't
it?
have been.
It's funny that when you read Harry's autobiography Spare, which I did do for professional purposes, it was hard going. He actually calls me a sad little man in the book as well, which I think is very rude. Although, let's be honest, he's the sad little man, isn't he, really? I'm very happy. You just have to look at those photos of his long face. But actually, Harry tells the story of when he asked permission of the Queen to marry Meghan. And firstly, he should never have done that because it's really terrible to betray the late Queen's trust in that way, especially a private conversation like that. But secondly, she gave it reluctantly. She gave it reluctantly. She was no fan of Meghan, mark my words. Andrew, what do you make of this other content that they've got coming, though? Harry's executive producing a reality series about polo, which I don't know,
Yes,
I know. Meghan's
I know.
cooking for her friends. I mean, do they have a chance of another hit, or does it just feel like everyone's bored of them now?
Well, the person who can make polo relatable is Gilly Cooper. I mean, she wrote all those sort of books, but it's all about sex and scandal. Most of these books are sold on the index at the back, aren't they? What names are you going to be mentioning? What sort of derogatory things can you say about people without defaming them on that sort of basis? As I say, what I sometimes like to, in the interest of balance, shine a good spotlight. One of the best things that Harry's ever done is the Invictus Games, and I think we should absolutely have a look at that and praise that when we can. But these book deals and various other things where you sell out your own family, I am so against that. And I think it always used to be never complain, never explain for the royal family. The Queen was brilliant at that. I know we're going to come on to Trump in a bit, but the Queen was absolutely brilliant. And it feels like a betrayal. I think that's the right word to use.
And the problem is, Charlie, if they do need to make more money, unfortunately, they're going to have to throw more mud. And so I think that's where you get back to the worries that Charles has, because Meghan is threatening to write her autobiography. Well, if Harry's was bad, can you imagine what his wife would say about the British royal family?
Well, I didn't read Prince Harry's book, and I won't be reading hers either. I'll let it be dissected in the media and make my own mind up on reviews. But because I'm not that interested in the couple, I have to be honest with you. I don't find them entertaining. I don't find them interesting. I wish that we had the old Harry, where he was known for fighting for the country and doing things with veterans, and he was just he felt like one of the lads, didn't he?
He was one of the lads, yeah.
Yeah, since he's married Meghan, it seems to be amplifying her ambitions. She was obviously in TV, and that's all they've done since they've been married is, we don't like the royal family, let's go back to TV. You could have done that. You could have done that in America. You could have stayed with Suits that no one really watched anyway until it went to Netflix, and you could have done your acting over there and carried on doing what you was doing. I do see this as a ladder climb. I hope that there is a way down from all these rungs they've climbed up, because I do think underneath it all, Prince Harry is actually a very nice man.
He is.
But he's been led away by a very beautiful woman.
And also the media changed their opinion, didn't they? If you look, I mean, Harry was a darling of the media at one stage. He was the exciting one. And actually, Meghan, to start with, people loved her. And I think it all changed, didn't it?
Well, it all changed because of their behaviour, absolutely. First, what's so important about being independent is that I only tell you about products that I personally use. One of them is Verso. I've entered my 40s. The importance of staying healthy as I age has become really critical to me. So I've done a few things, actually. I'm doing the 16-8 fast, exercising most days, but I've learned that will only get me so far. Scientists like David Sinclair have proven that we can now reverse aging with interventions that go beyond healthy habits. So for me, I was looking for a product that would enhance everything I was already doing, but also one that was backed up by solid evidence. So that's why I use Verso's Cell Being product. It's really brilliant, actually. It has scientifically proven ingredients that fight the effects of aging by increasing NAD+ levels that power every cell in your body. For me, I take it at the start of every day. I've used it for a number of months. It's made fasting a lot easier. I've lost fat. I'm eating less too. And a lot of that is down to its blood sugar regulation effects, which lead to fewer cravings. I'm even sleeping better, actually. So I really recommend Verso, and I'd love you to experience the same thing. Remember, it publishes third-party testing from each batch produced too to guarantee you are getting what you paid for. And I'm delighted to say that because Verso was my first ever sponsor on Outspoken. Please do support them as a result. Today, if you go to buy.ver.so/outspoken, you will save 15% on your first order. You just have to remember to use the coupon code Outspoken when you check out. The website address, I've put it in our YouTube and Rumble description, but I will repeat it now. buy.ver.so/outspoken. Use the coupon code Outspoken. But look, Andrew, you mentioned that Daily Mail front page, which went all around the world. I actually thought it was really outrageous and really tasteless. This new book that they're serializing from Craig Brown, claiming that the Queen said all of these horrible things about Donald Trump, including the fact that he was very rude and that he must have an arrangement with Melania Trump. Now, I just do not believe it. I do not believe it. I think this is all part of the MSM beat up on Trump, because he's always really made a lot of political capital out of the fact that the Queen and him got on with each other and that they had that state banquet together. Well, interestingly, he went to the source today in order to hit back. He actually has given a really funny interview with the Daily Mail in the US, making it very clear what he thinks about this book. Watch.
There's a new book coming out about the Queen in the United Kingdom. Craig Brown has made a little bit of news because apparently the Queen told lunch guests you'd been a little bit rude, had been looking over her shoulder when you met, as if to find more interesting people to talk to. What did you make of that story?
It was totally false. I have no idea who the writer is, but it was really just the opposite. I had a great relationship with the Queen. She liked me and I liked her. I spoke to her often, and I spoke to her in particular when I was there. We spent hours together at a state dinner. She was a fantastic woman. I think it's a shame that a sleazebag can write an article that's totally false. In fact, I've heard always the opposite. I heard I was her favorite president, and you've heard that too. She would say it to a lot of people. She said it to friends of mine, that President Trump was my favorite president. And then you have this guy looking for some publicity for a book that probably is phony in a lot of other ways too. Now, I know nothing about him. I have no idea who he is. We had an unbelievable relationship. She was an amazing woman.
Yeah.
My God, I love him. Andrew?
I absolutely love it. I know Donald Trump is the master media manipulator, the favorite president. Looking over his shoulder, I think two things on this. One, I think it's outrageous that anybody discloses what the Queen may or may not have said. But actually, to put this into context for Donald, the Queen met 13, that's 1-3 out of 14 presidents during her 70-year reign. And that's included the Kennedys and Reagan and Eisenhower and so on and so forth. I imagine she's probably gone pretty well with Reagan because he had a good sense of humor. The only one she didn't know, just for fact of interest, is Lyndon Johnson. That's the only one. I'm not quite sure why he didn't make it. But Donald's brilliant to hit back. I think it was appalling that somebody disclosed what the Queen may have said, because she wouldn't have wanted that. And I had the joy of meeting her a couple of times, and she was glorious personified, and I think that the naughty one was obviously Prince Philip, who would always have a little side joke and so on and so forth. I was introduced to him, I'm a barrister, and we went to Middle Temple for a dinner, and I was introduced. This is Andrew Eborn. He's a barrister and also a magician. And she said, "How nice." And Prince Philip came back and said, "I bet that's good for pulling the birds," is what he said to me. So
yeah, I think this was a political hit job, Charlie. Everything's designed to attack Trump, isn't it, when it's coming from the mainstream media, probably a mainstream publisher, because anytime something is leaked out of the mouth of the late Queen, there is always a political reason for it. You'll remember the very famous Sun front page, which I didn't have a problem with actually because it suited my purposes, but do you remember Queen backs Brexit? So when these things are linked, there is usually a political purpose. I think this is all about humiliating Trump.
It likely is. I mean, this year's election in America is very important, and even in death, the Queen's influence still lives on. So for him to say that he was the Queen's favorite president, I mean, look, if you ask Trump about anybody, that he would say that they said he was their favorite. Didn't matter who you're talking about, they're always in favor of Trump. But I do agree with you. There is a hit job here. Who knows? I doubt it very much that he was looking around for other people to talk to, because even before meeting the Queen, during his time in the UK and since her passing, he's always praised her. And it doesn't seem to be with any agenda on his part.
Indeed. Indeed. Well, what a day. We've covered it all. Thank you so much to my brilliant superstar panel, the political commentator, host of X Uncensored on X, Charlie Sansom, and jack of all trades, he does so many things, including being a futurist, Andrew Eborn, host of TNT's Muckrakers, which I'm hoping I'll make an appearance on very soon.
Brilliant.
Right, Andrew?
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to it.
So good to have you. Thank you both. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please do subscribe if you want lots more clips and interviews like that. Plus, if you want to watch our totally uncensored after show, then visit www.outspoken.live.